What's going on, people? Welcome back to We Are Tottenham TV and welcome back to another panel show we got today. Me and Sim got back from Milan yesterday after a really, really good trip. Football maybe wasn't up to scratch, but great people met all around and yeah, really good trip. We got butlered all the way through it, so very happy about that. But look, we've got a panel show to talk about today, some important things to talk about. And let's bring on the panel. And we have got Sean Butler and Brains McLeod. Sean, Brains, how are we doing?
Good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Just recovering from Milan, but it was a great trip. Brains, how are you doing?
Not bad. I'm loving that Butler has become a proper good synonym for.
That's all I use now. We're going to try and replace it. We're making a cultural difference. I think we're going to seep into the culture, getting butlered.
I say it to friends. They're like, "What were you doing last night?" I was like, "Oh man, I got totally butlered," and they're like, "What are you talking about?"
This is a bad thing for my reputation.
Well, it's a bad. Depends how you look at it. I would say it's a good thing for your reputation.
Exactly. If you're in for a good time with Shawnee. That's all you know.
But look, we've got 4 topics to get through today, and let's start off with the news about Antonio Conte today. There was a statement on through Spurs saying that following a routine post-operation check in Italy yesterday, Antonio Conte will remain at his family home to recover from his recent surgery. Health is the most important consideration and everyone at the club wishes him well. Stellini will assume first-team duties, and there's also been from noise from Antonio Conte as well, who said on Instagram, "My great sense of responsibility towards the club, the players, the staff and the fans brought me to anticipate my comeback on the field. Sadly, I underestimated the procedure, which wasn't a routine operation, but a sudden and serious emergency. My body has suffered my impatience and now I'm forced to stop until my entire recovery. Who knows me understands what a burden this is for me, but it is necessary. Come on, you Spurs." We'll start off with you, Brains. I mean, could Spurs, we don't know when Conte is going to be back now. Can Spurs cope without Antonio for the foreseeable future?
I mean, with Stellini, he's got a pretty good record. So, we've not lost with Stellini in charge, right?
Yeah.
Two games, 2 wins.
And 2 big games as well, to be fair.
Yeah, and I also like that when Stellini was in charge, they did that thing where they adjusted Dyer's. Clearly, Dyer is one of the biggest problems. They adjusted his starting position. They made him move around a little bit. I like that. Have we seen Conte do that? Arguably not. So I think Stellini's got some chops, and maybe he's been hand-tied as the second in charge. Obviously, ideally, you want you want Conte there, but we have our best performance against City, followed by our worst performance of the season against Leicester, a team that we normally beat. So it just something isn't really sitting right now, And this kind of this stuff with Conte, especially stuff like this where it's open-ended, where it's not you never get it'll be over in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. It's kind of open-ended. It's he could just be chilling with the fam in Italy. When's Italian Fashion Week? Is it been or is it coming up? Is he waiting for that? So yeah, it's jokeable, but it does leave you constantly in this situation of, do we have a manager that's invested? Do we really have a manager this season? Because all this stuff is just constant negativity. It's is he just writing this out? What's going to happen after the he gets back from the gallbladder thing? Was he another thing comes up? It seems a lot of I don't know. Never before have we had a manager who's a sick note. You're used to Lucas Moura being no, we've got a manager. Right? So yeah,
that's how bad our medical team is. Even our manager's going down injured.
Yeah, man, it's just kind of crazy. So I obviously wish him the best, and I want obviously Conte to stay, because I think him going starts a series of events that I don't think anyone is quite ready for just yet. But if it's gonna happen, maybe it should happen sooner or later. But yeah, I think I don't think it's a good thing, but I do think Stellini's quite capable.
Sean, what are you thinking?
If I'm honest, sort of been feeling more and more like we should rip the Band-Aid off on Antonio Conte. I feel like, look, there's no lack of love from me towards him. I empathise with his health. I think he's going through a period of his life where there's so much change and he's in a mourning process. You know, a lot of people talk about this. You lose 3 guys that are under the age of 60. I think they all were under the age of 61. 3 of your closest. We don't know whether he's familiar with, loss to that regard before then. And on top of that, you have the gallbladder issues. You probably start to reflect on, the important things in life. He's obviously a little bit homesick. He comes across as homesick to me. I don't think his heart is in the job. I think he looks at the challenge in front of him, the players that we have, the willingness to go and buy the players that we need. And it's all probably a little bit too much, and I feel like the energy that he presents of late has been so lackluster. I know that there's going to be consequences if he leaves, or potential consequences with regards what will that mean for Harry Kane's future and other things, other change to come. But I don't think that necessarily is a fait accompli until you know who the next manager coming in would be. I think if it's one type of manager, I think that Kane may hang around. If it's another, I think maybe he doesn't. But I think you have to deal with the here and now. It would be the cheapest parting of managerial ways that Tottenham have had in recent years. The amount of money we've spent cancelling Pochettino, Nuno, Mourinho's contract, that's like 10, 12 times what it would cost to cut the cord here. And to me, I feel like, what's the point? We know we're all treading water a little bit. He's obviously sick. Why don't we just release him and bring someone else in, because you never know what can materialise for the second half of the season. And I think it's too much of a disruption to our team to go from him to Stellini. I get on board with what Brains is saying. I think Stellini's would be fine as a caretaker, but I don't see any potential. I don't see any future with Conte at the club next year anyway. So for me, I'd probably say let's have a frank conversation, shake hands, wish everyone the best, and probably find a new path.
Well, based on this news that he's has to recover from his injury, you would do that?
No, I just think it's like this is like another. For me, it's probably like the straw that's breaking the camel's back a little bit. I've been feeling like it's a fait accompli anyway, and I don't like the style of football. I can't stand the style of football. I've always been consistent in my distaste for his press conferences, the things he says, the things he doesn't say. I didn't like the fact that he criticised the ability to handle pressure of the players. I don't think you need to do that in open forum. There's lots of little things that I think are piling up, and I just think that maybe if his health is that bad, I mean, also, like, why would you go against doctor's orders? Surely to say now, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it is. Surely he's got the best doctors in the world. Someone would have said, no, like, can you not go back to England? Can you hang around and make sure you're better first? But he didn't. He came home. I just think his mind's not in it. His heart's not in it. And there's still so much to play for this second half of the season that I think we should maybe...
But Sean, surely if his heart's not in it, then he wouldn't have rushed himself back.
Yeah, I think people are like not giving him enough credit for not credit, but like I think you've been doing him a disservice to say that because he rushed himself back, that's a sign of him having his heart not in it. I think it's the opposite.
There's other things though. I'm not saying it's just the surgery.
He's come out. He said he shows great. It's because he feels that responsibility to the team. He wants to be back on the touchline as soon as possible. He doesn't want to be away from that team because I think he is doing his best. Obviously, he's had a lack of energy last couple of games, but I think that's understandable given his operation. I don't think he should have been on the touchline. I agree with that, and I think he himself concedes he rushed himself back. But I don't see the fact that he did rush himself back as a sign of him not caring or his heart not in it. I think that's, if anything, that shows to me that he really is committed right now, and anyway, to doing the best for Tottenham Hotspur, and really wants to impact the team himself, and he wants to make sure we get back on the right track. Hasn't gone right over the past couple games, but I wouldn't question where his commitment is, in my opinion.
Do you think he'll be here next season?
That's a big question,
big
but you
one.
know,
That's the $1 million question,
that's
isn't
the
it?
question. I personally don't, to be honest. I don't. But I think that when you're questioning his desire to work for Tottenham, I think that for him rushing himself back from a surgery, I think that's clear to see that he wanted to be there on the touchline. He wanted to be there for his team. He wanted to be there for the fans, and
But Ben-
he was putting his own health at risk to do that.
But Ben, like, that's bad management. Like, it's like rushing a player back when he's not ready.
Yeah.
And we've kind of seen that happen, you know,
Yeah.
under Conte. It's like there is this kind of like rashness sometimes. It's like you're the man in charge. You have to do the right things. You are the person who has to lead with responsibility. You can't be pulling yourself. If it is, see, I can view it like, you know, like that. I can imagine that doctors would have said, look, they never. If the doctor says, do not go back to the side of the pitch, there's no way he's going back to the side of the pitch. I think doctors would have been, look, well, you know, see how it goes, see how you feel, go to the training ground, see how you feel. And they probably would have advised, but look, we say, you know, these amount of weeks are probably better for you. And then he's kind of just went because he's maybe felt all right. But he wasn't himself, like at the Leicester game. You could see he looked white as a ghost, you know. And so I think but then at that point, it's like, okay, you weren't yourself. You looked horrified. Then don't take the travel. Don't take the trip and be at the side of the pitch at an even bigger match. So I see it as like a multitude of like bad decision making. It's like, and sometimes I feel that about him is that.
Yeah, but that's fueled by his desire to do well for us, to have that responsibility. I'm just saying, it's coming from a place of I want to make sure that my team is in like doing the right thing for his team. Like he feels that responsibility. It's not coming from a place of ego. I don't think. I don't. Anyway,
that's fair enough. And maybe I should like retract what I said about the.
Retract it, Butler. Retract it.
I don't think my thoughts on what we should be doing now with regards letting him go is not based on his whether he's like I just don't think he's the right guy for the job, and I think if he's going to take a meaningful period of time off, I also don't see him being at the club next season anyway. I think all that stuff is a fait accompli, and so why not take this opportunity to say, listen, mate, you're under a hell of a lot of stress with your physical health. You know, let's call a spade, right? Like, unless you want to commit, let's take the opportunity and say, don't worry about rushing back. Go and be with your family. Go and get better. I'm not saying this with any animosity towards him. I wish him all the best. But if he's going to be away for some meaningful period of time, then why not just release him from even the additional stress of having to think about Tottenham? Say, look, you know, it's probably not going to work out, right? It hasn't. I don't think it has worked out. Right guy, wrong club, or wrong club.
Yeah, square peg,
wrong manager, whatever,
yeah.
right? So I think that maybe we could take this because there's still things for Tottenham to play for, and I think that Tottenham Hotspur, when they're not playing in the way that they can be playing, we could be getting more from this team.
Sean, where do you think we should be? Where do you think we should be right now?
Playing better. I think we're capable of playing better football. I think we should be in the top
4, 100%. I think we should be in the top 4.
It's not that we're that far away. There's a whole half a season to go.
Or like 3 points away. But the thing is, that Leicester game was a massive opportunity. See, we win that game, and then the rest of those results turn out the way they turned out. Like, we would have been flying there. Then you got such a boost going into the Milan game, which I actually think, other than Romero, everyone played well. But I think I'm kind of like in the same boat as Sean. But I would just a little change would be that maybe because I still believe in Conte's ability in like a one-off game. The same as like I wanted Mourinho to take that final, because Mourinho in a final we can win that cup, you know, like you never know what happens. So I still think that if Stellini took these games and you know, Conte came back when he was ready for the next round of the cup or for the next Milan game, but say those games don't, say like 1 or 2 games here don't work out, you know, like Conte comes back, I think very soon the decision should kind of be made, like, you know, like I think we have to start calling a spade a spade. I fully agree that he has not been backed. It's really just been the weirdest match of man and club that I've ever seen in my life. A club that just doesn't back managers, a manager that moves as soon as he's not backed. It's been bonkers of a journey. And yet we're still kind of doing okay. And that doing okay tells you more about Harry Kane, like, carrying a team even further. Take Harry Kane out this season, I think we're in a relegation battle. And that would be a different telling of what's happening with your manager. You've got Antonio Conte, but you're in a relegation battle. Only reason you're not is because you have Harry Kane. And that, for me, is like a shocking indictment of his time.
But Brains, you can make the same argument under Jose Mourinho with Kane and Son. The big players were stepping up in all the big moments throughout. And at the end of the day, right, what manager are you going to get to come in to get a tune consistently out of the players that we do have, the Ryan Sessegnons, the Eric Dyers, and so forth? So, I mean, I don't really see the value. I don't really see the value of sacking Conte.
Yeah, no, you're right, because you're right in the way that in a way, this is how bad it is with Spurs. We have such a shocking defense and have had the same culprits for a while that it's kind of it's always going to happen. So I agree in the way that it really kind of doesn't matter who you bring in. That as long as you've got those defenders at the back, it's going to be a nightmare unless you bring a manager in who can pick the right array of the right numbers or right players at the back. And then
about that though, Brains, is it, mate? Let's be honest. Sonny has been utilised once this season off the bench as an experiment, and it worked. And everyone that was supporting Sonny was saying, "See, that is the justification to never have to drop Sonny again." To me, it was the justification that the experiment worked, and you should use that as a strategy more frequently.
Yeah.
But he hasn't. He continues to trust this guy who's played abject football all season, with the exception of that half an hour. We do have options up front for the first time. For most of the first half of the season, there were periods where we didn't have any attacking players on the bench because of a series of injuries. Now we have options. He refuses to use them. And
until 80 minutes in a game where the game is you're just trying to make sure you don't lose another. I
think if just absolving Conte of all responsibility or accountability, because the defense isn't good enough, but at the same time, the defense pre Leicester, I think the defense went 5 clean sheets from 7, right? So, and yet Conte gets the credit for that. But then when the defenders start to leak goals again, it's the defenders' fault. There's no consistency in the application of where the accountability goes. I think Conte deserves far more than he gets, and I think with this additional news about his health, I don't think he's going to come. I don't think he's going to be back in the summer, and I don't think he'll be back for a while now. For me, it's in his best interest if he doesn't have the commitment to Tottenham for the next 2 or 3 years. Then I don't know. If you love them, let them go. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Conte does need some accountability. I don't think maybe it is as much as you're saying, but you got to agree that he's been very unlucky with injuries this season, and we would be doing a lot better if we wouldn't having these injury crises that we did have. I mean, whole first half of the season we didn't have any backup forwards at all. Now we've had our midfield decimated with Bentancur and Bissouma out for a long stretch of time. Lloris is out now for a while. So I mean, and not only that, but we only got one left wing back in the squad now, Ivan Perisic. I mean, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but we're going to miss Ryan Sessegnon now for the second half of the season. But I mean, you got to understand that he has been super unlucky, and if it wasn't for these injuries, then we'd be doing a lot better, wouldn't we?
100%. 100%. There's lots of variables to explain the season so far. Not all of them start and exist with Conte being to blame. Not all of them start and exist with the players, and certainly not all of them start and finish with our chairman being.
Yes, they do.
The fault of the sum of all fears.
They all start with Daniel Levy and they all end with Daniel Levy. Let's be honest now. Let's just finish off this part of it and just get a final answer with you guys. If Conte is going to be out for a number of games, we've seen Stellini come in on the odd game and do a good job, but can he do it over a prolonged amount of time, 3-4 games, if that is going to be the case? Do you believe that we can get the results we need over the next 3-4 games if Conte is not going to be on the hot seat?
Who's that? Should I go first?
Go on, Brains.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Is you don't know until you see it. But there's something about when he speaks about things. I just feel like there's a quiet confidence in the man, and I think he's a really good people person. I don't know if you've clocked how he, when he's making decisions, he sometimes goes and speaks to really senior players. And uses them as his second in command. To, I don't know if you saw, Perisic came off. Was it against City or one of the games Perisic came off, and he almost like kept Perisic close to him, like talking to him through it almost every other play, like he involves people. So I just think he's got a pretty good way about him. I think players in the team really like. I think we've seen it that players fight for him when he's on the side. So you know, you never know. Like that's kind of like the new manager bounce in a kind of small way. You know, it's just you don't know whose side is going out. Like obviously, Antonio might not be there, but it could just be all his tactics. But the only one thing I remember seeing, which was quite clearly not an Antonio thing, was when him and Ryan Mason made that decision to change Dyer. And look, we can say that was like it was no biggie. That was a massive decision. It shut down their key playmaker. It totally shut down that space. Bernardo Silva was dead in the game at that point, and then Haaland couldn't get in. So I think that was I was quite shocked by that. I was like, well, that's like a massive decision to make. So if you're going to take that decision in that big game, maybe he deserves, you know, a little shot, and we can see what he's worth. But I'm as quietly confident as he sounds in himself. I am in him, you know.
Fair enough, Sean.
Yeah, look, I'll just keep this one quick brief. I think that I agree with Brains. There could be a little small kind of version of new manager bounce, and we need that. Like we need that now. We need a little bit of consistency. I think if we can go on through Stellini coming in, maybe taking the shackles off a little bit, then maybe we can get 2 or 3 games that are consistent, good performances, consistent, good results. And then from then on, maybe the confidence of the players can return. And then we can go on that kind of run that we were talking about after Man City, before Leicester. So I think that I'm not worried. I think that Stellini's got enough chops about him to be able to get some performances against 2 tough opposition in West Ham and Leeds coming up. So.
Chelsea, yeah.
Chelsea, not Leeds, no, West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, it's not great having Conte in a situation of recovery. Now, we all wish him the best. But Stellini and Conte have been working together for a very long time. They know each other. Stellini knows what Conte wants. I'm sure Conte will have Stellini will have Conte's ear as well. Like, I don't think it's too much in terms of a change in how we play or anything like that. Obviously, we saw how they played against Man City when Conte wasn't barking orders at them all the time. But Stellini, I think, has done his admirable job filling in for Conte when he needed to. So I don't see it being an issue from that point of view. I just hope Conte isn't out for too long.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, I think it can be a problem if it's like a real, like, prolonged amount of time. But I think if it is 3 to 4 games, I think we can handle it. But I got a feeling like if it is between 1 or 2 months, something crazy like that, then we will start to feel it at some point. But anyway, let's move on and let's talk about Pape Matar Sarr, Big Papa, and Rodrigo Bentancur, because Bentancur's injury rocked us last week. It really did. Out for the remainder of the season, potentially the start of next season as well. But every time Pape Matar Sarr has stepped in recently, he's played really, really well. And best performance coming against AC Milan, which me and Sim were saying it looked like a bit of a coming-of-age performance in the San Siro. We'll start with you, Sean. Do you think Pape Matar Sarr can fill that void for the remainder of the season?
Yeah, listen, I'm sure, like everybody else, pumped by the fact that both of them stepped up. I did a video called like Carpe Diem that was about those two. Would they seize the moment? Would they handle the pressure? I think both of them, him and Ollie Skip. I think Ollie Skip maybe flew under the radar or flew under the, was in the kind of shadow of Sarr a little bit on the night. But both of them, I thought, were very accomplished performances on the biggest stage. Look, they're still, one of them's 20, one of them's 21, I think. So yeah. I don't expect them to be able to do that every week. And there's going to be moments where they have bad performances or make mistakes. I think it's important that the fans give them the right amount of support, give them the right amount of patience, and let them kind of mature in their own right. But I think it definitely lightens the load a little bit. Like going into the Milan game, I was terrified around what might happen. If they crumbled under the pressure, then we were in for a really tough, and we still might be, but it was looking pretty bleak with just having Højbjerg back going forward. Now I feel a little bit more relieved that actually you've got Ollie Skip and Sarr and Højbjerg, and all 3 of them are capable and can maybe sort of be the boon that we need to get through this tough extended period. So look, I'm blown away by how good Sarr was, especially. Don't want to take any credit away from Skip though. I think they did different jobs on the night. Both of them did their thing very well. But yeah, in Pape Sarr, I think we have got a special player who, if he continues on his progress in the right form, then yeah, it's and you got to give credit to Fabio Paratici for that one, right? He gets a lot of hard opinions thrown at him for the amount of unsuccessful talents that he's bought and overpaid for certain players. But with Sarr, I think he paid, was it 10 million quid? You know,
yeah, I think it's like 15, 16 or something like that. But yeah.
Oh, was it 15, 16? Okay. But look, you know, at 19, 20 years old, he could become an absolute beast for us. So yeah, good positive things to come from him.
Brains?
Yeah, I thought that performance was incredible. Like, in relation to Bentancur, like, obviously, I don't think he has Bentancur's like vision and movement going forward, but he's better than Bentancur going backwards. He's a better defender than Bentancur. Like his length of his running span, like his leg span is vast. And actually, I don't think there's any midfielder at the club who's as good a defender as Sarr. I think he's the best defender at the club from the midfield. Like, we haven't really seen how. I think actually we've seen little spots of him progressing the ball and going forward, and actually he looks quite menacing. He's a little bit more erratic, and his shots, he's snatched at shots. The one shot he had in Milan, the field opened up. He actually could have run with that for quite some time and shot. He shot it early, but I think as soon as one flies in from him, I think he's going to score more because I think it will just settle him down. He'll pull the trigger at the right time rather than rushing. But you can see it. The good thing when a player snatches at shots, one thing you can see is that he wants to shoot, he wants to score, he wants to progress the game. So I actually like Sarr so much. Like everything I've seen from him, just even his little fighting off the ball, like the fouls he gives away are not mean. They're just like he just wants to harass the ball away from you. All that stuff I just love about him. There was a defensive block he made where the attacker, I don't know if it was Lau or Tonali, but they were so far ahead of him, and he made the space back and put the block in, and then he ran and got the ball and recovered it and progressed the game. I'm thinking like we haven't really seen that from anyone at the club, maybe not for a while from Højbjerg. Højbjerg used to do that, right? Run all the way back and then make a block. But I think Sarr's got something great. So I actually think Sarr is a benefit. The difficulty with losing Bentancur is that vision and like the clever thinking and the drop of the shoulder and turn, and the whole game is now going that way. No, we don't have that, and that's a massive loss because the amount of goals or goal eventualities came from him doing that. But the thing is, Skip, I actually think in the Milan game, Skip was sold out quite heavily by Kulu and Son and Kane. Their touches were so bad, and his probably his kind of pass ratios probably got affected. But I thought he was really good at progressing the game. I thought, and like after the first few times, like he was a little rash, but then he made this kind of slide tackle to recover, and you could almost see him. It was like that video game, the power up button. He was like, he gained in power, and it was like, man, he's just like manned up because visually he's manned up, you know. And he started to press the game. I was like really worried about Skip, but the way he played in that Milan game, and I think also we have to understand that Milan are not really Milan. They're kind of tied in third place on goal difference, but they've been a shaky team for a little bit now. You know,
since the World Cup, at least, yeah,
since the World Cup. So, but I still think in that level, you know, his nerves just could have got the best of him. They didn't at all. I thought Sarr and Skip controlled the game. I was so impressed with the fact that we didn't look like we were a bad midfield team. We didn't look like we were being overrun. They wrong. They actually looked like the two more senior, stronger midfielders in the battle, which was kind of mind blowing to me, you know, because they're playing quite seasoned professionals. So I'm quite excited about that. It's kind of almost a bit of a weird one. It's like I definitely think it's like who do you switch out? You know, like do you play?
Sarr comes in for Bentancur ahead of Skip, I think. But it's nice to know that Skippy's still. I
mean, like when Højbjerg comes back in, is it Højbjerg and Sarr?
Yeah.
And then you just put Højbjerg in the attacking because I think Sarr is better defensively. So, but the Højbjerg is normally the one who's progressing from the back. So I think you let Sarr do that and you put Højbjerg, because Højbjerg's got goals this season. He's actually a clinical finisher of the ball. So so that's what you would do. But I actually don't think it's too bad. This could just be the moment for Skip to actually come in and get a run, you know, and like he'll probably play every game now. He'll be an alternate, even if he isn't starting. He will play every game. So it's a good chance for Skip to like finally kick on like he was gonna in the past, you know.
Yeah, a bit of a problem I have with Sarr against Bentancur is we've won a lot of goals this season by, you know, pressing high up the pitch, with Bentancur being really good at that, you know, being the furthest man forward, really pressing the other team's defence into submission a little bit. And I haven't seen Sarr do that as of yet. I mean, he's very good at pressurising the other team's midfield in the middle of the park, but we haven't seen him go all the way up the pitch and really start pressing the opposition. So I want to see a bit more of that from Sarr if we're really going to kick on this season.
He's the lower pivot, isn't he? He's
yeah,
the lower
I know. But we didn't really have anyone to do that in Milan.
I think if you switched it, he would be quite with his leg span. I think he would win a lot of balls, you know, in their third. I think that would be
his
a great.
Leg span is insane. He's like a daddy long legs.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's absolutely mad.
Yeah, I mean, he was
mad how much ground he can cover.
And there was like a moment, I think it was like with like 15 minutes or 10 minutes to go, he like goes on this mad lung busting run down the right hand side, like with all this energy. I'm like, how is he still running at full pelt? Like was so late in the game. He seems to have incredible stamina as well as everything else. I think he made 5 tackles throughout the game as well. But for me, it was more his composure on the ball was absolutely phenomenal. I thought it was excellent for a player of his age. He wasn't scared about players coming to pressurize him. He was willing to hold them off. Most of his passes were simple, but when he did have switches of play, they were usually very accurate. And as Brain said, he had confidence to drive into space and actually to have a couple of shots of goal as well. Wasn't afraid to have a go, dig out effort. So it was absolutely fantastic. Look, but for all the praise we're giving Sarr, and rightfully so, the question was, can Sarr fill the Bentancur void? And that's a big question, because I'm not to downplay how good Sarr was, but Bentancur, the level he was showing, especially before the World Cup, maybe not so much after the World Cup when he came back, but definitely before the World Cup, the level he was showing, he was probably one of the best centre mids in the league for about a couple of months, in my opinion. That's how high his level was. Not just
he's also had a couple of bad games though. Like against Fulham, he wasn't spectacular.
I'm saying maybe not since the World Cup, especially for the couple of months before the World Cup. He was showing an incredible level, and the problem is, like, he was showing that kind of level and we were just about scraping games. Now, is Sarr going to be able to match that level? That's a big question. Like, it's a big ask for him to do that. And I think he obviously is a young player with extreme potential, and he showed that at the San Siro how good he can be. But it's about getting a consistent... Like, Bentancur was consistently putting high-level performances in, week out, pretty much, it seemed, for a few months before the World Cup. Now, is Sarr going to be able to put in consistent week in, week out performances to the level he was showing at the San Siro? And probably, to be honest, might need to have to be better than that. You know, if we are going to really not miss that Bentancur in the centre. Obviously, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a big ask for him to do that. I think when young players, you get inconsistency with young players. That's usually how it goes, and they'll have some great games.
He's been consistent though himself.
Yeah, but over short amount of time. Yeah, over a short amount of time though. You know, now he's literally going to be starting hopefully anyway, going to be starting week in, week out for the next, probably from now to the end of the season, considering our injuries. And it's whether do I really believe that we're going to see that consistency every game? It's going to be a big ask.
So if Bentancur was still fit and the performances of the front line over the last 2 games continue to be as bad as they were, or as they have been, and it doesn't matter. We're not winning enough games with performances of Decky, Son, and Harry Kane, who, for what it's worth, over the last 2 or 3 games, like there's a little bit of a template that's emerging of solid, you know, strong centre backs pressuring him, and if he doesn't get the protection from the referee from drawing fouls, then Tottenham falls apart a little bit with the creation of movement from Harry Kane. If Pape Sarr can put in 90% of the performance that he put in against Milan for the rest of the season, and the 3 at the top, whoever those 3 are, can step onto another level or back to the level that they were previously, then we'll be just fine. I don't think Sarr is the problem. I think at the moment we need more from the guys at the top, and we need more consistency from the guys at the back. And if Sarr does that sort of performance, if the other two areas have a bit more security and reassurance, then I think we'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think go on, Brains.
Sorry.
Go on,
I was
Brains.
going to say, I think it's about like the partnership of who he's partnered with. Like, say, like this season, Højbjerg has actually been, I would say Højbjerg has been better attacking than he's been at the back. He's been sometimes a bit of a liability for me. Like sometimes he just stops or he shuts off. Sometimes he hasn't been the extra layer of support. And I think that's added to our defensive problems. So I think if you have him on the front foot doing the kind of link play, he's obviously not as good. He's definitely not as good as Bentancur on that. Bentancur's feet are like kind of world class. But Højbjerg actually is an attacking threat. And the way he won that ball that then put in Kane for Kane's like record-breaking goal, like that's what you get from Højbjerg. So I think if Højbjerg comes in, I think Sarr has to be the lower pivot because I just think he's stronger than both Bentancur and Højbjerg. So I think all of a sudden our defense has a little bit of an extra layer of support, and then Højbjerg is in a natural position where he plays for Denmark, where he sets up goals, where he's in a kind of moving box to box, but really a high pressing, progressing the game forward. So I think if that works, if that's the kind of matchup, then I think we've got something really positive.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about Sarr though, because I actually think his technique is really strong when it comes to like first of all long range shooting and stuff. And I remember the World Cup when he came on for periods for Senegal, he was taking all their set pieces, all their corners and free kicks. Yeah. He was taking all of them and quite to a good decent standard as well. So it'd be interesting to see if he was to get a bit more freedom to be in the final third on occasion, how he performs, because I reckon obviously he's still very young, but given a bit more maybe responsibility to do that, I reckon it could prove dividends for us. Maybe not in the short term, but definitely over the long term. I reckon he could become quite.
There'll be opportunity for him to do it like a natural double pivot. There'll be a chance to do that, but I think in the big games, it might be sensible to have Højbjerg progressing and him just playing like, because there was a couple of passes he did that just blew my mind. For a player at his age, he did a reverse inside pass when he was playing. His shoulders are pointing this way, and he did a reverse pass, cut right through the field, and we were on the attack. And then our front players just sold him out again. But that pass there, it split the entire field in half. Like it and I was like, wow, like that is an incredibly creative pass to do. He was kind of had players on him. It was either pass the ball here and keep going back. No, he changed the direction of the game. So I saw, like, you're right. I saw creativity in his feet, not just like a defensive machine. I saw like he's actually, you could put him in the attacking midfield role and he'd do all right. But I think it's the right time, because what I kind of disagree as well, like, like a young player. And I think it is, in general, you're right. The young players come in, they then start feeling a little bit, complacent that they're in, and no one's going to take my side. No, we got no one. I think it's a little bit different with African nations players. They're just built a little bit different. That actually, when you get them in and you show them, you put arm around their shoulder and you show them you got love and like you're our guy, they start to kind of like build and build and build and get better and better. So I'm hoping that's what we see. But until it happens, we don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say if Sarr can actually fill the void that Bentancur's left, because he was like such a big player for us this season. Like we say, one of the best players, if not the best player. But what it's definitely going to do, it's going to aid his development, Sarr. It's going to be giving him invaluable experience playing week in, week out in the Premier League for a team trying to fight for Champions League football as well, in the Champions League as well, getting invaluable experience. So I think it's going to do the world of wonders for his development. And can you see maybe if Sarr does do really well from now until the end of the season, can he fight his way into being our number one midfielder next season, maybe alongside a Bentancur? Brains.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I think he could get the 8 shirt. Like, I think he could get the way we wanted Basuma to come and play. Like, be it that we don't really set up to play that way. Like, I think he could be that. Everything that I've seen in him so far, just the time, the kind of composure on the ball, like just the strength that he has in a tackle. I don't see stuff what I see is fundamentals. And sometimes when a young player's coming through and they're getting moved on loan, the reason is that they haven't fully developed certain fundamentals. Before Skippy went to Norwich, I genuinely thought he didn't have the composure. I thought he rushed, and I also thought he was a little light. He had massive shoulders, and I was like, when is Skippy going to like body a guy? Then he went to Norwich, and he was doing it, and I was like, Skippy's got what you need now. So, but Sarr, I think Sarr's been playing at quite a high level. His loan spells and his teams that he's been playing at, he's been like quite like needed, and people have raved about just his mind and how he understands the game and how he plays from such a young age. So what I see, the reason I think that he's going to have a bit of consistency is really I'm seeing fundamentals are strong with him, you know, and so yeah, I think there is some credit due with Paratici signing him. I definitely think he was scouted. That you know, we can actually say finally our scouting system really did one there, and Paratici got a great deal there. So yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, it's not a great situation to be in, only having 3 when you play 2 in the middle. Like anything could happen at any point. But yeah, I think he could fight for that 8 top.
All right. Let's move on. And let's talk about Sean's favourite guy, and now that is Richarlison. Obviously, with the front line not ticking the last couple of games, Sonny all season, Kulusevski has had poor games last couple of games. Is it now time for Richarlison to really get the nod and get a couple of games and really show what he's about? He brought him in for 60 million in the summer, hasn't really played in his favourite position all season. We've shoved him out on the right, given him the Bergwijn treatment apart from that. Let's start off with you, Sean, then. I mean, is it time for Richarlison?
Yeah, it definitely is time to give him a chance. I don't think, you know, his first 6 months or whatever it's been now has been very disrupted by injuries, by lack of opportunities, by being played left and right and centre. You know how I feel about him generally. I don't particularly rate him as a player. Don't think it was money well spent. But I think that I believe in meritocracy, and I think that, you know, he's long overdue a chance. I think right now you could make the argument that both Decky and Son are struggling for form and fitness. Sonny has been the case for the entire season. I'd say absent that 30 minutes. Decky hasn't really recovered, I don't think, or he's not quite sort of come back from that injury or that recurrence of injury. And when I saw him play in the Leicester game and in the Milan game, what became apparent to me was that I don't think he had the faith or the confidence to drop into like 100% sprints. I felt like he was always kind of in second or third gear. And I think that is maybe like a symptom of someone who, you know, is worried about whether they can trust their hamstring anymore. So yeah, I still have more faith probably in Decky putting in a shift right now than I do Sonny. And I do think that Richarlison needs to come in and be given his chance and time to shine. How you put him in, though, what you do with the formation to give him his best opportunity to make that work. Look, I'm not a tactics specialist. I'm not someone that, you know, is going to profess to know. So I'll give you my opinion, but it's not based on anything rather than, you know, just from what I see. I don't know. Like, I think you can't really expect anyone to change to go to a back 4, like a 4-2-3-1, where you could play Richarlison in the 9, maybe drop Kane to the 10. So if you're going to keep with the 3-4-3, and it's got to be a centre, left or right, you either give Harry Kane a breather, which I don't think you can afford to do, but at some point, you know, asking him to play 90 minutes twice a week, it's going to catch up. You know, it's going to catch up with him. He hasn't really had a long-term injury since the Champions League season. So I think that maybe you could find a game, maybe the Sheffield United game in the FA Cup, although that's a big risk because that's our best chance of silverware. But maybe you try Richarlison there in the 9, or you play him on the right or the left again. But I still don't think you're going to ever really be able to judge Richarlison in the left or the right. Yeah. Because that's not where he's at his best. So, you know, it's definitely time to give him a go. How you fit him in, I don't know what the answer is really. I don't think you can judge him when he's being played out of position.
Isn't it just a simple case of dropping Son to the bench and putting Richarlison on the left? I mean, we still haven't seen him there like on a consistent basis. Maybe 10 minutes at the end of games here and there. I mean, the main time that he was starting, it's always been on the right hand side, and out of the 3 positions, that's his weakest one out of the 3. So I mean, surely with the way Sonny's playing all season, it's not even a recent thing. It's all season, literally. All season. Surely you have to drop Sonny now and put Richarlison in on that left.
Yeah, and look, that that's obviously that's the most logical if you're going to keep to the same system and also continue to play Harry Kane. But at the same time, though, when we have seen him play on the left and the right, I think his first thought is to do something similar to what I'm seeing of Sonny recently. Sonny gets the ball and he always wants to dribble it. He thinks he's got an hour on the ball and he eventually gets his pocket picked. And I think that what I've seen of Richarlison when he plays on the width, either the left or the right, every time he gets the ball, his first thought is to do something tricky, like try and nutmeg the player that's approaching or try and do a back heel or something like that. And it annoys me. Like, it's an overcomplication of a simple process that I think is in part forced because he doesn't have the space to do one thing or the other, depending on which side he's on, because the touchline's only a yard away. So for me, yeah, if everything's going to stay the same, you drop him for Sonny. Oh, sorry, you drop Sonny for him. But I still don't think you're going to be able to judge him as a player playing on the left-hand side. I think he's a guy who should be up front like he is for Brazil. And that's, I think, the only time, if you give him a run of games in that central position, see if he can score a couple of goals and then we can go from there. But I don't think that you're going to be able to get a full picture of what he can do for Tottenham if he's always being played in a wide position.
Yeah.
Do you think, just sorry, Brains, just before we move to you, do you think that what you're talking about with Richarlison, that he's always trying to do something special, take it through someone's legs without too much success, do you think that's because maybe he's only got such a short amount of time when he comes on and he's just trying to over-impress and trying a bit too hard, where maybe if he was to start from the game and have a few 90-minute periods in a row, we might see the true value of Richarlison?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. I mean, who knows? I don't, I haven't seen enough of him. I know that at Everton he was doing similar things. For Brazil, he does things a little bit differently. There's other flair players around him that do those sorts of tricks before he does. But for me, it's just frustrating. I get frustrated with the overcomplication of things that he does and what Sonny does. The reason I love Decky so much is because he keeps it simple. He tries to beat the man and uses strength in the right directions. I think flair players that don't necessarily have brilliant flair ability that continue to do that sort of stuff, it winds me up. The only thing I was about to say, though, before I hand over, do you think that there's any logic to maybe going to, like, could you play Sonny and if you were to play Richarlison, could you make the tactical adjustment and play it more of like the three up front, more as like a 1 and a 2? So you have Richarlison and Kane playing as more as sort of both number 9s, and then you have someone like Decky step back in with a bit more freedom to move left or move right, but actually stay more central, so that we can get a bit more sort of direct the balls into the front line. Because I feel like I said, the last couple of games I've seen Harry Kane get bullied by Harry Souttar, get bullied by that Faish, get bullied by Simon Kjaer, and without the protection from the referee giving them the free kicks that he usually gets, Harry Kane sometimes can break the ball down by having that poor control, whereas Richarlison might be able to also be a second option if the ball's getting pinged forward from Fraser Foster or Romero or Dyer.
Yeah, I would like to see us move to maybe a 3-4-1-2, with Højbjerg, Sarr in the middle, Kulu just behind Kane and Richarlison, and to see how we can go from there. But Brains, what are you thinking about Richarlison? Surely it's time to start him now, right?
So, no, I don't think so. Yes. So for me, he should have started against Milan, but as a centre forward, because Kane, there's clearly a plan of how to play Kane, and in a game like that where we're not really going to go out to win this game, so then rest Harry Kane and then bring him on with like 20 minutes to go, and then it's like such an adjustment for them, because they would have trained for Kane, and then you've got Richarlison who moves completely different to Kane, so they would have been a little bit off feet, So it's like then Kane comes on, and then they're now adjusted to Richarlison. Now Kane's come on, and he's probably going to pick up some space, and it's a different thing. The thing when a player, just being mad honest, and I know this because I do it. It happens to any attacker. When you quickly try to flick the ball away, or when you try to do like a smart ass flick, it's got nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that you're lacking confidence. It's like you're trying to make up for something. Any player who's in confidence believes in their touch, and they want to take the ball on the turn. Like when you do a little silly flick, you just don't have confidence. You're trying to make something happen, but it's like a 50-50 that it could happen. You don't really have the confidence. So I don't think he works. For me, he doesn't work as a left-sided winger. I just don't see him working there at all. You can't switch him with Son, because Son has a very different role in this team. There's the reason why Son keeps starting every game, and Conte even said it. Son plays a lot of the time as a defensive midfielder. Like, he drops in and he doubles up on the left side. And he does that when we play the 5-4-1. Son is pivotal in that 5-4-1. And I think Conte, like, really, he gets really stubborn with his defensive positions. And sometimes it's such a clear lack of confidence in the manager that we have to play 5-4-1 when we defend. So then Sonny is handcuffed to play deep. And then Sonny's told, pick up the ball deep and do what, your famous runs that cut through teams. So then Sonny does that, but then he holds it too much and he loses the ball. So Sonny's role either has to change or adapt, or, like, if you're going to have Richarlison play, then the way we attack changes, because Richarlison drifts inwards. He drifts inwards. He doesn't pull out and then go round. So there's an annoyance for me there in whose role is what. I think you have to change things. You don't have time now to change, like, unless they're drilling. I don't see that. I'm seeing all of our attackers' feet, all our touches are just going to shit. They're clearly not drilling, like turning and taking touches under pressure. They're not doing those drills. So I don't think if they're not doing those drills, which should be standard drills every session, that they clearly don't have time to now do a structural rechange. Where, look, now Richie is the point of reference he keeps talking about. Right, now Richie's the point of reference. Now we're going to build all our attacks around Richie. And that's going to be a very different thing. And that might work, but you need time to get that system going. And then you've also got the fact of Kane's role. He has the point of reference, but Kane comes deep and he can put balls over. He can do things that Richie could never do. So, and we're a team, Spurs are a team that rely on Kane's creativity, not just Kane's striking. So I would say, Richie is a centre forward. Let's start him as centre forward. Changes the entire way we attack again, because the way the positions Kane takes up, sometimes it's a 9, sometimes it's a 10, sometimes it's deeper. It's kind of a meridian of problems when you're building a team. All of your moves around Harry Kane means that you can never take him out. It's a huge problem.
Yeah,
it is a problem. You're right.
It is a massive problem. Absolutely spot on, to be fair. Hit the nail on the head there. But Sim, what are you thinking about the Richarlison situation?
Yeah, I think I slightly disagree with both Brains and Sean when they say get out of here. I slightly disagree. I think he can play on the left. I think that when he was at Everton, some of his best games were out on the left-hand side. Obviously, he did. In fact, he started when he first came to Everton. He was a left winger predominantly, and then I think it was only a big injury to Calvert-Lewin, and then he got a big run as a centre forward down to necessity, and actually did so well in that role that he became Brazil's number one striker. And now I do think he's a good striker. I think he's one of those strikers who's a bit of a nuisance. He'll be pressing you all the time. He'll pick your pocket. He's quite good in the air. He's got decent finishing ability. But what I don't like about Richarlison is I think his first touch is extremely frustrating at times. I think sometimes it's good, but a lot of the time he gets fired into him and he just can't make it stick at all. And I think I wouldn't say his decision making is bad. What is bad is his weight of pass. It's absolutely dreadful. He when he's asked to do a through ball or to put it to Ori, when he's got a good opportunity to lay in if someone, a lot of the time it's found wanting, and his passes are not very good. I would try him on the left hand side in place of Sonny, as much as I love Son. I think there's a bit of an elephant in the room, I feel like, with Sonny when it comes to what Brains was saying, and getting him to track back all the time and stuff like that. Now, Son, he's always been a team player. Son will always give his all for the team. But the fact of the matter is, he'll be 31 in the summer, I believe, or he's 30 now. He'll be 31 soon. Yeah. When you're an attacker of Son's elite ability, but when you rely a lot, let's be honest, Son, as much as he's an elite finisher, don't get me wrong, he's probably one of the best finishers in Europe, but he still relies, because of his slender figure, he definitely relies a lot on his pace. He definitely relies a lot on being quick. I'm not saying he's lost his pace. I I still think he's rapid. But what he has lost, I think, in my opinion, is that ability to use that pace consistently throughout the 90 minutes, like have that stamina to, like, he used to be able to just press relentlessly, Son. He can't do that anymore. He's now 31. And when you see players maybe not Sonny's profile, but like elite attackers who rely on pace get into their later years, for example, Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Robben, these kind of players, what usually happens is as they get to 30, you have to start adjusting your game. You have to start using your pace in a smart way. Now, the problem that we have is that because of the way we play, and I guess you can put the blame on Conte or whatever, but when you have Son tracking back so often, I feel like a lot of the time, like when he doesn't have the energy when he gets in those attacking positions as much as he did, and when a lot of the time either he's running from deep where you have to use a lot of energy, or he's spending so much time tracking back and then getting forward that when he gets to those forward positions, he's very easily getting pickpocketed because there's a lot of players around him. He doesn't have the energy like he used to burst into those spaces. He can still do it, but he can't do it as consistently as he used to. Now I think it's time we start adjusting his game so that he isn't maybe tracking back as much, and when he is in those forward positions, we're making the most of him, or we do like Sean is saying, maybe use him from the bench a bit more. So when he does come on, I think you think about that Leicester game, like in all three of those positions, he was like the furthest player forward, and he was the one waiting for the ball, and then he got to use his abilities with a bit more time and space, and with a bit more energy because he just come on as a sub. Now I think Richarlison, what would be good is we had Richarlison on the left because he's such a relentless, because he uses his physicality so relentlessly. I do think we'll lose a bit of quality on the ball, no doubt about it. But what he will do is he will tire the other team out. Because he will so relentlessly pressure them, he won't give them a minute on the ball. He will do the tracking back as well because he's that kind of player as well. He's a team player, and when Sonny comes off the bench, he'll have that energy to make the impact, which he isn't doing right now.
Against tiring teams as well.
Against tiring, exactly. Which Richarlison will bring. Where he's a decent dribbler. So and I think most importantly, he's a really good presser. He'll bring that pressing energy, which at the moment, as much as Son tries, he just doesn't have it in him to have that pressing energy like he used to. I think that's a big element as well. So I think for me, you start Richarlison on the left hand side. You get him to wear the other team out, and then you can bring Son on as a weapon later in the game. And I think that Conte is just being too stubborn at the moment when it comes to Sonny. Either you adjust his game, or you take him out of the team and give Richarlison a chance. Right now, he's getting Sonny to do the same thing every game, and at the moment, it's not what we know. It's not working. We know it's not working. How
many games can we persist with this with the same results every single game?
Because I think he's still trying to recapture what he found last season, and what he found last season was amazing. But right now, I don't know whether it be Sonny aging another year, or it be he's adjusting Kane tactics. So Kane is actually a lot of the time a bit further forward, which means Son is dropping into deep positions where he's less comfortable, or whether it be Sonny doing even more I feel like Son's doing probably more defensive work than he was doing last year. I feel like Sonny at times was our furthest player forward last season.
That's because you've got Perisic behind him, right?
Yeah,
you've got Perisic behind him that's got the defensive frailty, so he needs support. Perisic is also, I believe, and I've been saying it since the start of the season, he enroads the space. When Ben Davies is on the left-hand side and we have the ball, sometimes he makes these like off-the-ball runs into the left-hand side of the penalty area, which again creates that space, and the other teams, move into that direction to occupy. I think that also you've got the argument, Ben, you mentioned, why does Richarlison do that one-touch trickery stuff when he comes on? Is it because he's only got 10 minutes to prove himself? I think that Sonny has become like exponentially more selfish on the ball than he's ever been in years gone by. And I think that is because he is desperate. He's so desperate to get his goal scoring numbers up, because he wants to participate in the season alongside Harry Kane. And I get it. But unfortunately, sometimes when you're that desperate and you're focused on your own insecurities and the lack of confidence, then you start making bad decisions because you want desperately to make up for whatever's happening with your season. So I think there's about 15 different variables that are affecting Sonny at the moment. And I agree with you, Sim, agree with all of you, that for me, you've got options. You either bench him and bring him off as an impact, or you adapt his game. But sticking to what we're doing right now, it's flogging a dead horse, right? It's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome.
I agree with all of you except for Butler, Sim, and Ben. No, I think that I think we are misusing Sonny. You know, that for me, it's like when you've got a player of his ability that picks up the ball like and cuts in and hits that corner, we just don't use him like that this season. It's like he's having to start so much deeper because a lot of games, even in games that we should not be sitting deep and letting the opposing team dominate us, we sit deep, and then he has to take up a deeper starting position. So think about the yardage that Sonny is constantly having to make up to get on the ball in the places. It's insane. It's like this is an aging player, and you're just using him wrong.
Yeah,
so
I think if you had a 25-year-old Sonny, he could probably do it. But I think at 30, you're just asking too much.
Yeah, and I think that's where the stubbornness is. And then I can also understand from Conte's, like Conte said this a couple of weeks ago, is like people keep saying about Sonny, it's like you don't understand the role Sonny has. He plays a defensive role as well. And it's like, yeah, but he shouldn't. Like, why is he? Like seasons ago, we used to see Sonny at the back post on corners making mistakes. We hated when he was there. You know, it's like other than that run against Burnley where he won the Puskas Award, like we don't really like seeing him too deep. You know, like we want him halfway line and above. Whenever he's in that role where Kane drops deep and puts him in over the top, you can just see that this is a striker. This guy wants to score goals. Like, so I reckon if you asked Sonny, like honestly, like obviously politically he would say the other way, but if you said honestly, would you like a more attacking manager to come into this club? I think Sonny would jump at it because under Conte this season, knowing, and obviously Conte has his reasons, this defense ties everyone's hands back. You know, it ties everyone back because you're covering for a weak side, you're covering for a wing back that's not really that great. You know, you're covering for a centre back. Everything has to start deeper then. And that's the crazy thing. So then our tactic is start deep, play out the back, bring teams on us, which is great because then long ball over the top puts your players in, and then you don't have players at the back that can play
only if the other team gets sucked into that trap though. How many times have we seen like our team just passing the ball around the back, one touch, one pass, trying to bring the other teams on, and the other teams are like, not going to do that, not doing that, not going to get sucked in.
Yeah, so it is a mismatch. And so then that kind of always leads back to the idea of like, you know, we can all see that. We can all see that Sonny's been misused. He's been overused. He's been running at the ground. Not only misused, but overused. Like in the positions he's having to run so much more. He's getting older, and yet no one's doing anything about that. For me, that is bad management. Obviously, there's a reason, but then I think you have to adapt your tactics. Then you have to move into like a different way of playing. You know, or you have to, when it comes to windows, you have to be prioritizing centre backs or, you know, stronger players in those positions. But I think the bigger question is, like, well, not the bigger question, but I also think it's a question that should Danjuma be starting? Because Decky's not doing that great and Son's not doing that great. Every time Danjuma comes on, he looks like he wants to do shit. He looks like he wants to get going. So he feels a bit like that he's an animal in a cage, you know, waiting for it. So I think he should be up there. Whatever happens, even if they don't start, they should be coming on sooner. They shouldn't be waiting.
Much sooner. That's definitely true.
It drives me nuts that. I'm like sitting there, it's like, come on, you can see players are burned out 70th minute.
Get them on. No? Yeah, I know. I've been calling it for early. I mean, even at half-time in the Leicester game, why did they not make a change? Earlier on in the Milan game, why did you not make a change? And when you're looking at Son's goal returns and goal actions this season, 4 goals, 3 assists. I mean, Højbjerg's got 4 goals, 3 assists. Bentancur's got 5 goals, 2 assists. I mean, it's absolutely criminal that he's around that level for goal contributions this season. But just before we move on, I just wanted to make sure Sean has got enough time to cover this next topic with us.
Yeah, I've got to jump by 3:15 latest. I've got so I've got 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
All right. Cool. Let's move on then, and let's talk about Jahm and Najafi. It came out a couple of days ago that he could be leading a consortium to try and take over Spurs. I'll just get the the things up. Iranian American billionaire Jahm Najafi, chair of MSP Sports Capital, is set to launch a $3.75 billion takeover bid for Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham declined to comment at the time. And then Sky Sports did say that Tottenham are not for sale and the owners are committed to their long-term plan amid the interest. I mean, we'll start with you here, Sean. I mean, who is Jahm Najafi, and do we want him and his consortium at Spurs?
Well, look, he's somebody that has extensive history of buying. I think he's acquired 30 different businesses that are moving more and more towards sports and media. But he's also got that history in technology, and he's into real estate. He's part of a private equity group. MSP Sports Capital is a private equity group. You know, the way that works essentially is you get, you know, more and more now. It's investment banks and different fund partners that will compile money together, and then we'll put it together and then take over, you know, a company. There's two problems with it, right? Or there's many problems with it. First of all, I don't know if this guy has too much experience in football. I think he's got minority ownership, or MSP Partners has got minority ownership in like 4 football clubs, a team in the Bundesliga, a team in the Belgium league, a team in Spain, and a team in Portugal. But you know, I'd never even heard of the 4 teams, and I looked into them. I think one of them's got a 30,000 seater capacity. The others have got like 6,000 seaters and 4,000 seaters. So they're minor, sort of smaller teams that they have minority ownership in. The problem with it, as far as I can understand, right, and all I've got to go on is the Financial Times article. And as much as Sky Sports and BBC have got their networks to be able to go and figure out what the deal is, there isn't a bid that's been made yet. So you can't reject an offer that hasn't been made. Whether or not Daniel Levy and ENIC have got no intentions to sell, there's always going to be a price at which point they'll go, okay, if it's not 3.75 billion, if it's 4.75 billion, if it's 6 billion, whatever, at some point the juice is worth the squeeze for Levy and ENIC. The problem for me is the way that the deal is structured, and there's no real insight into it apart from that it's going to have something like a 20% debt to equity ratio. It looks like 3 billion of funding from the private equity side and about $700 million, give or take, that would come from debt onto the club. Where they haven't gone into any detail, and where I think that unless Sky Sports and TalkSport and all those guys know more than what was in the FT article, they haven't explained whether or not that debt would be used to replace the debt that's already on the stadium, whether it's additional debt or whether it's, you know, from a different format. Of the 70% or 80% of the bid, that if it did come in and if it was accepted, if that was through private equity, those partners will want to have some sort of return on investment. And increasingly, it's less and less likely that those people in the private equity side of the deal would want to wait 20 years before or 10 years before they sell the club on to make their return on investment. So you're going to have, if a deal like this was going to be agreed at whatever price point, you're going to probably have a situation where not only do you have to finance the debt that's been put on the club, and that will be at significantly higher interest rates than what we managed to lock in our long-term secured debt at, which I think is 2.6% on average. If that's on top of that debt, you're funding 50-60 million quid a year in interest payments alone, right, in a future scenario. And that's if this particular price point is accepted. If these guys want to, and they've got a determination to get the deal done, and Daniel Levy and ENIC said we'll do it at 5 billion, then that additional 1.25 billion would likely come in the form of more debt, which would increase, again, the amount of money that gets put out of the club and the amount of money the club would have to generate to be able to service the debt. All of these things in this environment, with the interest rates the way they are, it terrifies me. You know, the way I look at private equity, I think it's a very useful tool in certain circumstances, in certain markets. I don't think that the markets are particularly ripe for that kind of investment, and we don't really know what you're getting into bed with. All we know is the guy has got these 4 minor clubs, but none of them are going to be able to really be a benchmark for us to look at and see, well, what did you do with them? Did you back the manager? Did you do those things? You also, they've got the McLaren F1 Formula One team. They've got X Games. They just bought, I think they've just sold their stake in or maybe they're selling the stake in the basketball team in Phoenix. But to me, it's all a bit like we don't know what this guy's interests are, apart from that they have interest in the property side of Tottenham Hotspur, the planning permissions that they have already secured for the new development of flats. So you could be walking into a Levy version 2, like a Levy 2.0, an ENIC 2.0. Not necessarily. You could come in and see a Todd Bowley type guy who brings the money in. Yes, there's debt associated, but then you've got the Abu Dhabi side of the deal, the 30% that come in and go, all right, let's go and spend 300-400 million quid. Let's get the players in that whoever the next manager is or Conte wants. So there's like, it's up in the air about what sort of version of a new owner you get. But to me, as I've said before, like I think the recent figures that have come out show that Tottenham Hotspur are not shy of spending money. The problems with Tottenham are our inability to spend it correctly, our inability to get rid of players that aren't working out, our inability to scout the right players, and our inability to develop youth. None of those things necessarily change just because you're moving from Daniel Levy to this other guy, you know, because they're not the ones that are going to be making those decisions. It's whoever you hire to do the job of scouting and youth development that's going to be responsible for that. So, look, I've got a bad feeling about it. In a nutshell, like there's no bid even to even really kind of like reject or talk about yet. But if something happens, I would imagine now that Daniel Levy would turn this down at this particular price point. If they come back with a higher bid, who knows? But for me, the devil's in the detail, and sometimes it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. I'm not saying that that's the case here, but for me, I don't particularly like the idea of having a lot more debt on the assets of the football club, especially in this interest rate market. So I'd rather wait. I'd rather, like, if there was someone that's going to come in and do it, I'd rather get like a sovereign wealth fund, right? Because that stuff has a lot less risk in terms of financial security or sustainability anyway. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. I don't know if that all makes sense or if I bored you guys, but like, to me, there's no debt, there's no detail around the deal. But what it does look like is that there is probably more debt, and debt for me is an issue.
I don't know. I was watching porn anyway, so.
Brains, how are you feeling about this potential bid coming in from Jahm Najafi out of the US? Do you think that we would want him at Spurs?
It doesn't sound like, the numbers don't sound right. I can't see. I mean, I'm so levy out that I would welcome Jumanji happening and rhinos bashing down the walls and storming through the streets of but it doesn't. It's like there's that other part of you that's like, you're so you're so anti-Levy that you could be looking at just the worst thing, you know.
Yeah.
And so we know that with that stuff with the we know that we're going to attract a lot of companies that are more interested in the property portfolio and the ability to make massive turnover from events. And we're already angry at this stuff, you know, with the existing owners. So I wouldn't say like a Todd, well, actually, I'd love a Todd Bowley situation, come in and just like bring the greatest players in the world to a team. But there's also negatives on that side of it as well. So it's like, I think it's a non-discussion until they actually come with something. But yeah, I also am a little bit dubious about who in the structure of the deal. So
I'll tell you what, Brains.
I was much more excited about QSI than these lot, I tell you that.
There's one part of it that I find really interesting, is the fact that they leaked it to the media. Like the fact that that's come through the Financial Times. They've gone through a specific an outlet, a broadcaster that doesn't deal with speculation. They don't deal with clickbait. They deal with facts and figures, and they're going after a specific audience. But the fact that it was leaked 3-4 weeks before a bid came out,
must be they're serious.
What was the purpose of doing that?
Surely.
I don't. But the purpose of leaking it, you don't have to leak it to demonstrate your. But I take.
Actually, I do hear what you're saying as well, Sean. I hear that. Actually,
I think.
Go on.
Sorry, the last thing I'll say is I think it might be a ploy to take advantage of the fact that there was protests recently, and maybe by announcing it now or leaking it out through unknown sources to the FT, maybe that is trying to create a conversation before a bid comes in to see what the fans do, to see if they start to react to it and generate that kind of like amplify that unrest, I guess, that exists in certain parts of the fan base. So it's a very clever, interesting tactic, and we'll see what comes from it.
One thing I don't personally have too much to add to the conversation because the news broke in Milan, and I don't know too much about this guy, about what he'll bring to the table. But one thing I did want to ask Sean is, so I was on, Simon Jordan was on the radio before, and he said basically he heard from a club source within Tottenham that 3 billion quote wouldn't be enough to even get them through the side door. He said when it comes to this valuation, that's what he said. That's wow. What was claimed. Now I remember, it must have been a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, that when there were talks about Tottenham potentially selling, that Tottenham were looking for 3.5 billion, and everyone was saying how outrageous that was at the time. Now that seems to be well short of what Tottenham want even now. Apparently now they're looking at about 4.5 billion. What do you reckon of that potential price increase over the net after the last couple of years, or of that price overall? Do you think that's like a fair price? Are we asking too much?
Well, it depends what it comes with, right? So if it's just the stadium and the squad and all the assets that are just typically Tottenham Hotspur Football Club related in the training ground, then you can make the comparison to like other clubs that are, being spoken about, being talked about selling right now. The Chelsea deal looked to be around the 3 to 4 billion, depending on who you ask. Manchester United, I think within the next week or two, anyone that's interested in making a bid for them has to put in a confirmed statement of interest, and then we'll see, because that is a stock exchange listed company. You'll have to see all of the details of those bids, and if there's 10 companies or 20 or 50 or whatever, only one of them will be successful. We'll see what happens with the prices of all that stuff. And so you'll get to have like a range of valuations. Manchester United have got a massive brand, a far bigger brand than Tottenham, but their stadium's falling apart. Chelsea have got a brand that's equitable to Tottenham, according to Deloitte, but their stadium is about to be rebuilt, but it's going to cost apparently 50% or 100% higher than what Tottenham's cost, because of the commodities boom. And in inflationary markets, things like metals, things like concrete, all that stuff has gone through the roof. What I would say is that if Tottenham Hotspur's valuation is not insignificantly based around the value of the planning permissions for those properties in Tottenham, let's call a spade a spade. Tottenham is being gentrified right now, and it's a very lucrative area in terms of its proximity to central London and all that stuff. And so, in a market, in a recession, in inflationary markets, there's something called nothing safe as houses. I'm sure you've heard the phrase. People, even though you might see a general reduction in house prices for the time being, because mortgage payments on the individual might outweigh the ability, mortgage payment increases might outweigh the ability for people who lose their jobs in a recession. But for the developers, for the people that have got no issues there, this is the perfect time to be able to make an absolute killing in gentrification regions. And so what I think where Tottenham's valuation is probably on the top end of that range is because of the things like the planning permissions that they have for the second phase of the Northumberland redevelopment plan. And that's not something that Manchester United has to offer. That's not something that Liverpool has to offer. And it's not something that Chelsea has to offer. So whoever we get in, if we do get someone in, like they're probably going to be interested in property as well. And so those things, when people get frustrated about hearing, cinemas and hotels and golf courses.
We're a football club, Sean.
Oh, I know that. And none of those things, none of the profits or costs of those things are ever represented on any of the Tottenham Hotspur accounts. So I don't know why people moan about it so much. But any new owner, I would imagine, is probably going to want to have that stuff as well. So you're going to have the same sort of frustrations. If you think that those things are an issue now, they're probably going to be gripes that you're going to be annoyed about with a future owner. The only difference is whether or not the new owner comes in and keeps you happy with the amount of money they're willing to spend and improves the ability to identify, retain, and develop talent. And if they don't work out, sell them better. And I don't think any of those things naturally change, whether you've got Daniel Levy or this Iranian-American guy in charge. I think that those things are shaped by people like Paratici and his team rather than Daniel Levy. So, I don't know what else to say about it. I don't necessarily think anything changes in regards to Tottenham's fortunes just because we changed the ownership.
All right, guys. I think unless you got any closing words, Brains.
I Other than just trying to make a joke out of the guy's name again, nah.
Big up. I think we'll leave it there, guys. Really good conversation there about all those topics. I want to know from you guys in the comment section below all your views surrounding everything that we've discussed today. But Sean and Brains, thank you so much for coming on today. Brains, do you want to tell people where they can find you outside of We Are Tottenham?
Just go and check out all the music, Brains McLeod on pretty much everything, Spotify, or Syllable and Brains on Spotify, or wherever else. Check me out on YouTube as well. Loads of freestyles, loads of bars if you're a bar guy. Yeah.
Chat GBT raps, yeah.
I battled that thing. I absolutely enjoyed that thing. That thing can't do multisyllabics, god damn it. Yeah, no, other than that, that's it. It's been good to chat, and yeah, I'm gonna go and get butlered after my football game tonight.
Awesome. Sean, any exciting shows happening this week? Next week?
No, just my usual. Yeah, probably. I think I owe 3 shows to the members of my channel, because I haven't done one this week. So I'll probably go through the financial stuff a bit more, and then get some panels on. Probably have a screaming match with Danny Kiriakou or something.
I need to see that rematch. Let me land. I need to see the rematch.
It's amazing how the difference in my I take my dog for a peaceful walk and talk about Tottenham, and then I go live and then just start screaming at each other. It's like a dichotomy. Yeah, Spurs Talk Show is where you can find me. Appreciate you guys.
All right, everyone, go and subscribe to those 2 channels there. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We'll see you again next week for another panel show. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.